in your votes for that? No? Okay. It gives me great pleasure to introduce so I'm going to ask Ophelia Meltzko to come forward and introduce our speaker for this evening. If you could give Ophelia a hand.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, almost. My name is Ophelia Meltzko, and it's a pleasure and an honor to present our next speaker, known as the geek who can speak. TK is a Rotary consultant, organization excellence coach, and motivated mentor. She lives at the corner of connection and culmination. And she signs her emails as "It's possible." TK helps leaders, experts, and enthusiasts identify where to focus, boost their ability to connect with others, and understands people and performance drivers. An expert in her field, TK has been recognized by the Departments of Energy and Defense, various state governments, healthcare, and businesses. A friend of Rotary. She's a longtime Toastmaster with successful experience serving as club president to district governor to an international board member. She's going to be presenting her topic, and she's been a team member for Rotary for a long time. We have worked together over 2 years on Zoom, and today I got to meet her in person, which I'm very excited. She looks the same. Hi. Which is amazing. Here to share some ideas and tools with us, please, Rotarians, welcome TK with What's Possible.
In 1990, I was asked to be on a conference committee. Anybody on a conference committee before? I had been in Toastmasters a very short time, and I was given the task of taking care of the printed materials. What a perfect assignment for somebody with a degree in math. And I thought, okay, printed materials, how hard could this be? I'm old enough to remember my mother with the bowling club in doing the mimeograph. So it's like, now I can take it to a printer. This should be easy. So I go to the conference committee meeting, and I'm sitting with all of these other people in the conference team. And the conference chair is going around person by person and asking, how is the status going? And they came to me. I stumbled. It was embarrassing. I felt like I wanted to crawl under the table. I'm listening to all these other people. They're doing a lot. And I'm sitting here trying to crudely draw things like a mathematician. It's not very good. Fortunately, there was somebody in the room that recognized she needs help. And this person came over and gave me some advice, which was very similar to some advice that you heard if you were here in this room at lunchtime today. So who was here and heard Deborah speak? All right. Do you remember when she had a goal, her club, Espanola Club, had a goal? What was the goal? They needed money. How much? 27,000. There's a numbers person in this room. I love you. 27,000. Did they have it in the club? No. Did the club say, we got to figure this out? No. And she got advice. What was the advice? Ask other people to help. And thank you very much. I told Dick and Deborah they were not allowed to answer the question. They were told to get some help. And this is what this kind soul did. It said, you can have help. I said, I know. I was told I could build a team and ask anybody I want. I don't know anybody. Let me help you. And suddenly, what turned out was a horrible experience. I was ready to say, no, I never want to help again, to a great, fantastic experience because I had a mentor. It was wonderful. And Deborah probably feels the same way with her mentor as well, right? So give a round of applause for her one more time. So I am including information in today's talk in a book that I'm writing called What's Possible. You heard that I sign my emails, it's possible, and I'm going to share with you tips that have been used and successfully used by people, especially in the volunteer environment, which we all serve, right? This can also be used in other areas. Now, when you think about it's possible, and you think about my experience when I was in this team, and this conference chair who was very capable and very wonderful, and by the way, everybody wave to the cameras because we are filming this, so especially you up here, they can see you. Say hi. Very, very capable. We're going to share this with all of you guys, so you're going to, Ophelia and Sunny will be able to have some of this captured for marketing purposes, because we want to get the word out, right? So one of the items that I was thinking about in this is this very capable, very smart, very busy person had never talked to me. I felt as I was a team member who wasn't seen. Today I'm going to share with you 3 principles that fit into I see you. And you will get a handout of this electronically afterwards because I customize all of my talks. I have some information to make sure I capture it here. And if there's anything else that comes up, I'm going to add it. All right? So it's I see you. Now, how do I sign my emails? It's possible. That's the I. You have to have an it's possible mindset. Is it easy to have an it's possible mindset? Sometimes, I was rolling murmuring, yeah, maybe, and there's a no. I heard a no in here. We're not gonna single you out. You may have heard the phrase, I'll believe it when I see it. What do you think about that phrase? It's wrong. Why? You have to see it to believe it. I love you. What's your name? Jessica. And what club are you with?
Downtown.
Okay, you had to think about it. We have to work on some things. Oh, you're a spouse. Okay, so you're joining when? I'm sorry. I've been told I'm a little assertive in encouraging people to join things, so we'll talk later. I'm not the first one. I'm sure I'm not, and probably not even the first 20, right? Yeah, so it's possible, and you want to see it. You have to believe it first. One way to do this, and I got this great tip, was to write an article. You all are taking office when? July 1. When is your term over? June 30th. Thank you. We got to work some calendars. Okay, we'll work. So June 30th, your term is over. A week or 2 later or a month later, wouldn't it be great to publish an article that said how great your year and your club and your projects were? Yes? Okay, write it now. Yes, write it now, yes. But you're a leader, you don't write it alone. Write it with your club, write it with your team, write it with your team, the club officers. You don't write this alone, you write it with people. What is our year going to look like? There's going to be no question if you have it in writing, correct? Now, some of you might have better luck than I do. I've been on teams where I've led them, and sometimes somebody has to leave for a reason, and somebody new comes along, but none of that ever happens in Rotary, right? Right. So if you have this, you can hand it to them. And you could say, here's what we are looking to achieve. By the way, if you have any suggestions, edits, or whatever, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. That way you start getting that buy-in, that little bit of camaraderie. I'm part of this. I can see this. And there's something else. I'm in performance excellence, and one of the biggest risks of performance dip is when we're comfortable with something. So when we're new, we're always reading and everything. We want to make sure it's all right. And, especially I'm not a cook, but I have learned how to measure perfectly. And I've also installed 2 toilets. The first one took 7 hours. Second one took half that time. Still took a long time. But it had to be perfect, and I was brand new at it. If you kind of have some familiarity with it, you know you don't have to read some things, and you can do a little bit more over here. And that's when we have that opportunity to make some errors. And it's when you are that expert that you go back into that awesome mode. We're volunteers. Most of us are in the middle, right? So we kind of know, but we got to share that vision with people. So having that written, make sure that everything you and the team said when you were excited and it was new is going to be there when that new person comes on and they're feeling like, I got to catch up. So it's possible starts with writing that article. And I want to make sure I have all my notes that I captured here. Oh, yes. Where is Martine? Is Martine here? Oh, are you the spouse? Oh, you got a problem. So Martine was sharing with me that in his club, they were wanting to put together a Roto Care Clinic. This was not a 6-month term activity or a 12-month. It was 3 years. That means you had to work together with people to get something done and have a lot of faith that it was possible, correct? So Martine said, it's going to be 3 years, it's got to be self-funding, and this happened. What year did it happen? What year was this successful?
Oh, last 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay, we have to work on your memory too. Okay, so good. Yay. You should be shouting from the rooftops. In 2020, we did this, or whatever year it was. This is fantastic. And I'm sure you helped as spouse, because, you know, spouses always help, right? You should hear my husband talk. Yes, okay. This is fantastic when you write this article. Now, the question is, does it work? Well, some of the things I do is, in addition to giving talks, I also coach speakers, including TED speakers. And I was coaching a woman named Ann Rhodes in Albuquerque. Does anybody know Ann? Oh, I see a few hands. Yes, isn't she wonderful? She used to work in a bank, and then she worked in the people department at Southwest Airlines, and then she got into helping hotels, ended up forming her own company, People Inc., and I got to coach this woman as a TED speaker. In the course of the conversation, I found out she was invited to go to New York, where she and 4 other people were going to sit down and figure out how to create an airline. Guess what their first action was? I gave you a hint. Wrote an article. They wrote an article that they thought the business publications would put into their material after the airline was launched. Does anybody have any idea whether that was successful or not? Successful? Okay, I hear just a few, so it's sort of like, I'm not so sure, but you're going to tell me.
You trained her, yes.
Not on that, but yeah, I wish I had. Anybody have a guess what airline that might be? Well, she worked for Southwest before she did this. That would have been kind of hard. Chicken and egg, true. Yeah. What? JetBlue Airlines. Thank you. And you're even wearing the color. What's your name?
Sorry?
What's your name? Sorry? Hi, sorry. No, I'm sorry. So, yeah, it's JetBlue. So they did this in a hotel overlooking Times Square. They wrote the article of what the airline was going to be written up about in those in the business publications. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it really does work. So it works in small areas and it works in big, huge tasks. JetBlue is still around. I've flown them. They don't come here often, but they actually do fly out of Albuquerque, I think still once a day. It works. So write this article with your team. That's the I. It's possible. So remember that. C. I see you. We're going to talk about the letter C. Anybody have an idea what that might entail? Communication. Thank you very much. Yes, I am a Toastmaster. That's not my job. I volunteer in that area as well. Communication, and there's actually a bonus C. Connection. So you heard that Deborah and I both had wonderful people that came into our life that helped us connect with others. We don't know everyone, but we know that there are more people outside our circle that can help us. So why not reach out and ask people, can you help me with somebody who has legal experience? Can you help me with somebody who has graphics experience? I really needed it on that first job. Can you help me with whatever it is? And you'd be surprised at where you get those connections and who can fix you up with who. If you're really clear, because you have the it's possible. You can say, this is our goal, see, read it. They don't even have to be on your team, and they know what you want to accomplish, and they're going to buy into it. So connection is really, really important. And I have on here, yes, I put on here, it's really important. In my 20s, if you were to say, oh, let's get TK to talk about communication, I would be the last person on your list to be invited. You see, I worked for a defense contractor, and I, mathematician, thought everybody wanted to know every single different activity and calculation and computation it took to get to that answer that we shared with the general and the rest of his staff. Was this good? Yeah, this is why mathematicians don't have a lot of friends. My husband's just like, just get to the point. That's what this general was saying. Me, couldn't even see it happening. I had no idea I was not connecting. Fortunately, I had a mentor. My mentor's name, Elizabeth Shatosky. She was in charge of the publications and the technical writing department. She tricked me with a homemade lunch, brownies with nuts. I gotta have the nuts. Walnuts are the best. Almonds are a close second. And I followed her like a puppy dog into the conference room when she opened the door, and I saw the timing device and the banner, Toastmasters. I know what this is. You need this. Sit down. Okay. I was mad. It's like, I want my brownie now. By the time the meeting was over, I knew she was right, and I needed Toastmasters. I gave a speech. The very first one you give is your icebreaker. It's 4 to 6 minutes about yourself. I practiced at home. I couldn't even keep the dog in the room. Dogs are not cats. He's like, no, I'm out of here. You got problems. I gave that talk. I was clutching the lectern 4 to 6 minutes. When I finished, everybody went, and I thought, okay, great. I speak and it's painful for people to listen. It appeared as if I'd never taken a breath for 4 to 6 minutes, which is a very long time. And they were holding their breath with me. I'm known as Racy Tracy. That's what the T stands for. I also drive fast. I do not ski fast, which is why I had an accident. It was painful. And I had the best evaluator give me encouraging feedback. So I came back. And I came back. And as you heard Ophelia mention, they couldn't always remember my name, but they would say, that geek who can speak, can you go get her? And I became a triple threat. I was technically competent. I could write documentation, which is what, I'll share that story with you later. And I could talk to people. Most of us in the technical fields are not good at talking to people. I learned how to do that. And when I learned how to give evaluations, I was suddenly launched into leadership because I helped people want to be better. Because isn't it wonderful? This is like, you call that a truth? Or whatever in that movie. You remember? What was the guy's name? Jack Nicholson. Yeah. When you give evaluations, like, you call that a speech? Well, I thought so. We want to make sure that we, in a volunteer environment, have people that want to come back. So giving feedback is really important. The other aspect of communication and connection, I think I have something here. We've got Carlos. Yes, Carlos. Where's Carlos? I talked to Carlos on the phone. Is he here tonight? Not yet. Oh, you all get to tease Carlos. Carlos has a club that was open enough for people to comment. In fact, as a leader, we need to listen as much as we talk, right? So Carlos's club was open enough for people to say, I have an idea. And his idea, the guy's name in his club, was we need to raise money. Food insufficiency is a big problem. We have a backpack project we can do, but we need money. Same story, right? They created the vision, they communicated, they listened to this person who had great passion. If you can find that passion person to be that cheerleader, you've got half of your battles won because they will not stop talking about it, right? And who's the cheerleaders in this room? Okay, you don't have to raise your hand because we all know who you are anyway, right? Yeah, I'm one of those people too. So they listened to him and somebody came up, they said, we're just gonna do it, we're gonna we'll figure out later. And then they had two people who said, we'll match $5,000 if you can raise $5,000. Wow. All just because they listened to somebody say, I have an idea. So this made a big difference. We are leaders, so we lead, we listen. If we're leaders, does that mean we do it all on our own? No, that's right. So we have a team. Everybody needs to have a team to get something done because I understand in working with Rotary that leadership development is a part of being a Rotarian, correct? And some of us, like me, when I was very young in Toastmasters, needed more of that experience because I wanted to get into leadership. I wanted to do more. And so kudos to all of you who are leaders now. Who are the first-time presidents coming up, president-elects? This will be your first time as a president. Stand up, please. So everyone who's standing, look at all the people who weren't standing, and these are people that you can go to as a resource and a mentor. It's really important to have that opportunity, and Rotary is so wonderful. In fact, I've talked to people at Rotary, it's like, oh, I went to a city, I'd never been there before, don't know anybody, I didn't have my shoes, and I just reached out, and the next thing I knew, I had shoes for the next day. True story. If you can do that in a club environment, in a Rotary environment, you guys have connections, you can call up a stranger anywhere in Rotary and say, hey, I heard you might know. And the question is in our company, we used to say, you're my third call. And it was like, you should never have to call more than 3 times to get the answer. So that's a good one. It's like, you're my third call. Pressure. Do you have the answer? Can you help me? So it's really important to think about who can do that and who can help you. And in this particular one, we have, I want to make sure I shared this with you, is when you lead, you probably have status meetings or you have status presentations in your clubs, right? Do you meet with the people that are giving presentations or status before and outside? Does anybody do that? Okay, Ophelia, you're nodding your head. Of course, I knew you would. You want to talk about somebody who follows up on every detail? She is terrific. She's like, okay, we don't need to have a meeting, but we have to exchange email on this, so she will get you. If you talk with your team leaders, if you talk with your folks who are going to be presenting a status before it's in a group setting, you will find out a lot. Maybe there's a challenge. Maybe they need a resource. Maybe they need help. They don't know what the system is that they're supposed to be working in. Somebody needs to help them get through that. And maybe they have a question that's just a little stupid to ask, but I'm not going to call up anybody. But since you're on the phone, would you mind answering this question? Powerful, powerful connections. You can also find out if there's hesitation, if there's concern, if they're not sure how to give a report, and you can help them solve a problem before they have to say it in front of everyone, I have a problem. They can say, well, I solved this problem thanks to Anita helping me out because she knew what to do with the system, and now I'm smarter, and I have a new friend. This is a really powerful activity, and it doesn't have to take a long time. It may be 15 minutes. And I highly encourage you, if you do this, to do it on the phone, with one exception. Your major introverts in the room are linguistically gifted. I am not one of them. You need me on the phone. I am as annoying as all get out with an introvert because all they think I do is repeat myself and talk a lot. That's because we think out loud. We need you for the rest of our brain to work. So I do the email exchange with some of the folks who are very comfortable in that electronic communication because they can be very succinct, and then they write back to me and they say, can you just be shorter in your communication? No. My husband's an introvert. Yeah. So meet with them, you have that information, and it's fantastic. And then you get to go ahead and have all this good communication. And, let's see, then you will find out if there's any challenges or problems. So still in the communication, I have a story to share with you about, I worked with the missiles, the big missiles, ICBMs. And we were in a company that was going to have an assessment come through. Some of you may be familiar with AS9100, the aerospace version of ISO 9000, and some of you might be studying more numbers. What's that? And that's basically the certification that says your documentation matches what you do, and every time you do what you do, it's the same. You can expect it to be good. Having that kind of certification as a consultant is excellent. We got bought. We were going to have to change, and all this communication was going to come out and say, you need to do this and this and this. We got permission to say, no, you don't have to, because we had no time to get all our documentation to match the new company. So we had to tell them, don't listen to them. But we couldn't just leave it at that. So I was in charge of the communications group. We created communications called a Missile Minute. Our goal was it takes no more than a minute to read. Because how many of you look at the email and check to see if there's an attachment? And then say, oh, I need to put that aside so I can read the attachment at a later time. And you don't. Yeah. If you promise to them that every single time a Missile Minute comes out and it takes no more than a minute to read, you're going to have people reading. That's fantastic. If you also say it'll be no more than one page, that's fantastic. And I knew, in talking to that, because I brought in some advisors and some other people who knew different parts of the company, I said, we need to make sure it stands apart from the communication. How will we do this? And one of our interns said, we'll just make it sound like a cubicle mate is telling you. It's sort of like, I'm your friend. You really need to know this. This is important, but don't listen to all of that. So we wrote it like a QB mate would. It got great attention, great readability. We passed the certification audit. It was terrific. Now, I have a question for you. Were we always able to write a one-page, 1 minute or less communication? Oh, I love you. You were just like, no way. What is your name? Lynn. Okay. What do you think we did?
You do what I do. I mean, you shorten as much as you can, but you can't do a one page if your topic
Yes.
is so important.
Exactly. So we said, all right, we have to figure out how to handle this. So we had a bluff section. Does anybody know bluff? Bottom line up front. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I met you before. Yeah, you're awesome. Bottom line up front. So we wrote this so that we could still be true to all of our stakeholders. This will take you a minute or less to read, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of text, so that if somebody wanted to just get the highlights, they got it, they could talk about it. And then we said, if you want to know more, keep reading. It is powerful. You might want to think about this because you're going to have both kinds of people on your teams. You're going to have people that want that detail and other people who are like, got it, let's go. It is amazing. So we had this little missile minute. We also knew we needed to stand out differently. Now, it's very important to be true to your brand. In fact, Toastmasters is the first professional agreement they had with any organization is Rotary. There are actually rules about putting our logos together. So you don't want to do anything to mess up your logo. You have rules too, but you want to have your communication stand apart as there's some mascot or something. So some of you might remember years and years and years ago, Taco Bell had a commercial with a little chihuahua. Do you remember what the chihuahua said? Yo quiero Taco Bell, right. So we said, yo quiero missile. And when we had the graphics department have a blast putting a missile in the mouth of a chihuahua. Did it stand out? Did people read it? Did people think, oh my God, those people have lost it? But they read it. Do something so that your material stands out, but do not violate your brand. All right, is there anything else I have on here? Oh, yes. You're going to get, like I mentioned, a handout afterwards. There are the golden rules of emails. If you write an email, how many topics should you have in your email? One. One topic per email, yes. If you have more than 2 people in your 2-line, what is a good tip? BCC, blind copy them. How many people do you know in your life that say, reply all? Thank you. Yeah, you won't get that. So 2 people or more, blind copy them all. And that's in their last, and they're like, you have secrets? It's like, no, I have a clean inbox. Number 3, our brains love 3s. 1s are 2, okay, 2s are fine, 3s are good, 4, I'm going to forget one. If you have more than 3 topics, 3 questions, 3 action items, you need to break your email apart. So 1, 2, 3. 1 topic per email, 2 people blind copy, 3 items, good to go. Sound good? And this will also be in the handout. All right, I also talked with Paula. Is Paula in here? Paula, I've walked by you a few times and we've smiled at each other. You are wonderful. So do we have approval to share your story that you had with, what's that? Oh, okay. So I had the wonderful opportunity, as I mentioned, to talk with a few people. And when you are communicating, facts are fine. Stories sell. And what's your name? Nikki was at a fundraiser, Rotary fundraiser. You guys have done magic about polio, and Nikki has polio. And Paula said, was it Paula, you were the one that asked?
I asked her, our club, we were having a meet and greet, happy hour, and we asked her to tell the story. And we couldn't find a place, it was short notice, we're having all kinds of issues, so we're worried, is it going to come together? And then in passing, informally, the president there said, Nikki's going to tell her story at the meet and greet, and we're going to try to raise $500. Like that. So Nikki
$1,300 were raised. Okay, so $1,300 because Nikki told her story. And get this, Nikki wasn't really prepared. She just spoke from the heart. And as I tell all of my TED speakers that I coach, is people don't want perfection. In fact, perfection is kind of a turnoff. It's bland. I don't listen to you. I can't relate to you. They want passion. And your story is passion. Now, I have a question for you. I'm supposed to be finishing in like 2 minutes. May I have 5 more minutes of your time? Okay, great. Thank you. I'll take applause as a yes. So you want to think about that you, which is understanding. Understanding the stories that you have to tell. Understanding the people that you're communicating with. So understanding is really, really key. We talked about the email tips. There's other ways to think about understanding. I am a kinesthetic visual learner. That means if you tell me something in a hallway and I walk through a door frame, it's gone. And that's what happened when my mother she made a request of me. My mother's gone. And we were driving together before she passed. Yes, it was good. And she was trying to ask me about this, and I'm trying to remember. And I said, oh, I remember now. I didn't have anything to write with. And so I forgot. Now, do you feel like we're all capable, intelligent people, relatively? She looked at me. I thought you were smart. Yeah, no, my mother, I loved her dearly. Now, I was a daddy's girl, and in the 11 years after Dad passed away, I really got to know my mom. She was a great travel buddy, and she was so much fun, and she had no filter. She'll tell you exactly what she thinks, and that's exactly what she thought. So when you think about how people listen and learn, it's really important. Some of us learn, like I do, visually. I see it, I write it down kinesthetically, I do it, whatever. I'll remember it. Like some of these things, I didn't even have to look at it because I wrote it down in my own handwriting. I know what's in there, and it's cursive. So that means I can read it because I'm old. If you give somebody information that's auditory and they're not an auditory learner, is it going to stick? No. And what do we always say? I told them 1,000,000 times. You think they'd get it, right? And that's most marriages. I was working in another state, and I was coming from the restroom. This other person was coming to the restroom. Neither one of us had anything in our hands at all because it's the restroom. We should never even bring cell phones in there. True, they shouldn't. And a lot of people do. And she said, oh, I have a couple of questions for you on your document. I said, great, when you want me to stop by? She goes, I can ask you right now. There's nothing with her. She asked me 4 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4. She did that. I gave her the answers, and as I walked away, I thought, this is never going to make it into the final copy. She gave me the final copy. Every single word was in there, and I'm like, what is she, kind of a freak? This was before I knew that less than 10% of the population learn by listening. Most of us don't get it if we just say it. So find creative ways to write it. Have a game, do it, have a study partner, whatever it is, have some fun with it. You guys have been doing that here, so make that happen. And that's what I did with the one conference team when I was asked to take on the role of a conference chair. So, you heard about my first experience. So then my later experience was, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to make this happen. And how is the best way to ask somebody to do something? Is there a certain place where all of us go besides the men's room? Because more business gets done in the men's room, I tell you. Sorry, I used to be the only family or one of 2, and it's like, where was that discussed? Oh, that was in the men's room. There's a second place where a lot of business gets done. Golf course. I was at a Toastmasters convention in Palm Desert in August in the afternoon with 2 leaders who said, we need a conference chair. You'd be great. Damn, I don't think so. Darn it, that was a really good shot. You're good at this. No, I'm not. And I don't know why I played the best golf game of my life, but I said yes, and they did it because they figured out I needed numbers. They said, here's our highest attendance that we've ever had. Here's our highest satisfaction. And I was like, is that all? Bought in, done. I was the conference chair. Here's my problem. I was working out of state. This was fall of 1999 when the conference was to occur. I did not have the communication technology that we do now. So every 2 weeks when I was coming home for 3 days, that's when we met. We had somebody who volunteered to take on the Sergeant-at-Arms chair role. Less than 6 months, the Toastmaster had never been to a conference, didn't know what one looked like, but was ready to go, and I wanted that excitement. I thought, how can I help her? I need to get her a savior, a go-to person. Found somebody who had been in Toastmasters so long, they were ready to leave. I'm retired, I don't need this, I'm going to go do some things because I don't know about my time here and stuff like that. So we got him to mentor this new person. It was great. And then we thought, well, let's get everybody a mentor, or at least a deputy. Suddenly you had this rejoined excitement, because when you're the only leader, sometimes you just wish you had somebody to say, I'm just going to die. Or I'm struggling with it. I don't know how to make this happen. So we got everybody that. We got them help. We wrote the story. It was beautiful. Everybody kept coming in and out. In fact, when we looked at how people can get engaged, bless you, somebody said, well, what about attendance? And we looked at the district, which our Toastmaster district overlaps almost identically with District 5520 here. And somebody said, well, wait a minute, this part of the district has never sent anybody that we can recall to a conference. So suddenly it became, well, let's not just have this number, let's have a representation from each part of the district. And people could then buy into that. I know that club, I know that area, I know this place, I'm gonna make this happen. So we did that, and I wanna see if there's anything else I had in there. Oh yeah. So we did that. And before I tell you how it worked out, we have time for 2 or 3 questions before I finish. Does anybody have any burning questions? Thank you. And if you don't, that's fine. Yes?
So I love your energy and I love all of that, and you've been in this male-dominated field and done all that stuff, but how have you handled that as a woman when people aren't ready to address that as a woman?
I make lousy coffee. Seriously, I was working in the Dean of Engineering's office at the college I was attending, and they couldn't remember TK. I was known as Katie. KT, yeah. And I walked into a room one time and they said, oh, would you make the coffee? And I'm thinking, yeah, sure. This was before everything came pre-measured. It was the worst coffee ever. And someone said, how did you get this job? And I said, well, I don't have a job that says make coffee. I'm your analyst. What? So what I did is I just didn't get upset. I just did the job. And I have several stories that when I talk to, I'm also on the board of Mesa Math Engineering Science Achievement. One of my goals is to make sure, and Anita, by the way, Anita over here, one of your incoming presidents, is the deputy director of Mesa. If you have project management questions, talk to her. She's awesome. So the question is, how do we help? And we recognize that we had underrepresented people in these different areas, so we looked at women. We need to make sure that more women are in there. And they need to see women, which is why every time we have Mesa Day at the legislature, where we bring in 200 to 300 students so that they can dress nice, deliver their letters to their legislators, go watch what happens, listen to people say, I care about you, I see you. I want to make sure I'm there because no matter what, I want them to see a technical female in front of them. Now, if I was like handicapped and some other things, that would make me even more valuable, but this is all I got. And it works for the women. Then we also looked at financially disadvantaged, if they're on free lunch, because they just sometimes don't have those advantages that others do. And then we also look at different ethnic groups that are not well represented. So that's what Mesa does, and I will always make sure that when I do anything, I think about one of those young ladies seeing me. And there have been days when I think, oh God, I'm so glad they did not see me. Because I was not a good person. I aspire to be a good person every day and do the best job I can, and I delivered. And yes, you heard in the introduction, I have been recognized by governors. I have had people say, we don't think you're going to be able to do this. I was doing some Y2K stuff that I couldn't come home very often, and the state was failing audits. Children, youth, and families weren't going to give them money. They were going to fine them, and this fellow that worked in the company was talking to the chief information officer, and he says, like, what's keeping you up at night? And he said, this problem. He said, I have somebody who can help. And my parents raised me that can't is not a word that we used in the house. So it's can't. We just got to figure out a way. It may not be the perfect way, but it's a way. So we figured it out on how to do this. And so these people came in, and they looked at me. I'm sitting off in the corner because I'm not staff. And they said, we don't think you can do it. We want to talk to you. So do you think you can do it? And I said, well, as long as you guys don't bother us too much. It's okay, because I was not staff. We gave them time. We employed a technique that made it really easy for everybody to understand flip charting, kinesthetic, different colors, different activities. When the auditors came back, they looked and everybody was able to just answer all the questions. And I'm like, thank God, because I had no idea because we had not had the walkthroughs with them. And then they wanted to talk to my team, and I said, you have these two choices of time, and you have an hour. They knew I meant business, and I was hoping we could deliver because that was a big promise, and we did. And that's one of the governors who gave me an award at a big banquet, and the team as well. And we even made sure that there's just so many things in the human services environment. We were driven by so much. You don't want to leave somebody who's a danger in a house when they should be taken out, or vice versa. And if you've got calculations going wrong in Y2K computer systems, dangerous things can happen. People can die. So we were really, really driven by a big goal. So it made no difference our age, which I was so young, my gender, what I did, or who my team was. We were just there as humans. So that's what I've always done. I'm just a human here. And I care about all of you. I am a friend of Rotary, and if I could find a way to get a little more sleep at night, I might come to more of your meetings. But right now, I have got a lot of commitments, including Mesa, so they're my true love. Is there any other question? And I'll finish up. Thank you for allowing me this little bit extra. And thank you so much for that question. And if any of you are in the STEM field, Anita is always looking for people to be guest speakers. If you're in one of the ethnic groups, if you grew up in an economically disadvantaged situation, if you're a nerdy blonde chick like me that can't stop talking, she wants to hear from you because she has students that want to listen to you. So the question is do all of these things work? I was the conference chair. Did we exceed expectations of attendance? Oh, yeah. In fact, I offered every single successor, I will help you, and it took 11 years for that record to be beat. Did we beat the satisfaction? Yes. Are people still talking about it? Are people who never thought about being a leader now saying, back when you did that, it made me take on this role? So that whole succession planning, did that happen? Yes. This is how you build camaraderie. This is how you build teams. This is how you communicate. This is how you succeed. This is how you excel. This is how you get the Rotary mission out there, because what you all do is so important and everyone needs to be involved. Thank you so much. Thank you, TK. You're welcome. So you're done with me, right? Unless you want me to do anything with that?
Well, please give her a big, big applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, TK, for joining us today.
Oh, you're supposed to go front, remember?
Yes.
And I go in the back.
So thank you so much. This was a presentation for TK. She gave us so many good tips and tricks that we can go back to our clubs and start using immediately. Remember, very important, she said, write your accomplishments now. We are 3 months away from your Rotary year. Whether you are a seasoned president or a brand new president coming in, you still have planned to make it very successful. My name is Ofelia Letzko. I'm past president of the Westside Rotary Club in El Paso and founding president of the Zaragoza Rotary Club. With TK, I'm sorry.
You can call me anything. I've been called Katie, you know, it works.
With TK, we're together in the Rotary Toastmaster Alliance for the District 55. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, TK. Thank you, Katie.
Call me Katie anytime you want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me go over, and I'm so glad they did too.